Welcome to Story Planet, where every tale is a journey filled with warmth and discovery. Tonight, we invite you to join us by the fireside in a cozy cottage deep within the American countryside. In this story, The Winter's Hearth, you'll experience the simple beauty of life in a snow-covered forest and the unexpected warmth of a newfound relationship. So, get comfortable. Let the gentle crackle of the fire and the soft fall of snow guide you into this peaceful world. The Winter's Hearth. In the small town of Alderwood, hidden deep within the heart of the American countryside, winters were long, and the nights were even longer. The town's old houses, with their steep gables and shingled roofs, stood like silent sentinels under the weight of the season's first heavy snowfall. Chimneys puffed out trails of smoke that curled into the frosty air, carrying with them the scent of wood-burning fires. At the edge of Alderwood, near the dense forest that encircled the town, stood a cozy little cottage known as Willow's End. The cottage was old, built by the hands of artisans long gone, and had a charm that only time could bestow. Its stone walls were covered in a thick blanket of ivy, now frosted over by winter's touch, and the windows glowed with the warm, golden light from within. This was the home of Mrs. Eleanor Mayfield, a kindly widow who had lived there for as long as anyone in the town could remember. Eleanor was a woman of simple pleasures. She loved the quiet of the forest, the crispness of the winter air, and the comfort of a well-worn armchair by the fire. Every winter, as the first snow began to fall, she would prepare for the season with a sense of calm purpose. Her pantry would be stocked with preserves and dried herbs, her cupboards filled with spices and teas, and her woodpile stacked high, ready to feed the ever-hungry hearth. This particular winter, however, felt different. There was a stillness in the air, a quiet that seemed deeper than usual, as if the world itself were holding its breath. Eleanor felt it too, though she couldn't quite place what it was. Perhaps it was simply the weight of another year gone by, or maybe it was the absence of visitors, for the winter had always been a time when neighbors would drop by to share stories and laughter over a hot cup of cocoa. But this year, the snow had come early, and the roads were already impassable, leaving Eleanor to face the long nights alone. One evening, as the snow continued to fall outside, Eleanor settled into her favorite armchair by the fire, a thick quilt draped over her lap. The flames crackled and danced in the hearth, casting flickering shadows on the walls. She sipped her tea, a blend of chamomile and lavender, and let the warmth seep into her bones. The silence of the night was broken only by the occasional pop of a log in the fire and the soft tick of the old grandfather clock in the corner. Just as she was beginning to nod off, there came a soft knock at the door. Eleanor's eyes fluttered open, and she frowned. It was unusual for anyone to visit at this hour, especially in such weather. She set her teacup down on the small table beside her and rose from the chair, her joints protesting slightly with the movement. The knock came again, a little louder this time, as if whoever was outside was growing impatient. Eleanor hurried to the door and pulled it open, a blast of cold air rushing in to greet her. Standing on the doorstep, dusted with snow, was a young woman, her cheeks flushed red from the cold, her dark hair damp and tangled. "Good evening," the woman said, her voice trembling slightly. "I'm so sorry to disturb you, but my car broke down on the road just outside of town, and I've been walking for miles. The storm is getting worse, and I didn't know where else to go." Eleanor's heart went out to the woman immediately. She could see the exhaustion in her eyes, the way she shivered despite her heavy coat. Without a second thought, she stepped aside and gestured for the woman to come in. "Please, come in and warm yourself by the fire," Eleanor said kindly. "You must be frozen to the bone." The young woman hesitated for only a moment before stepping inside, sighing with relief as the warmth of the cottage enveloped her. Eleanor closed the door quickly, shutting out the cold and the snow, and led her guest to the hearth. "Sit here, dear," Eleanor instructed, pulling a chair closer to the fire. "I'll fetch you a blanket." The woman sank into the chair, holding her hands out to the flames as if trying to absorb as much heat as possible. Her shoulders relaxed, and she let out a contented sigh. "Thank you," she said softly. "I don't know what I would have done if you hadn't been home." Eleanor smiled as she returned with a thick woolen blanket and draped it over the woman's shoulders. "You're safe now. That's all that matters. My name is Eleanor, by the way." "I'm Lily," the woman replied, pulling the blanket tighter around herself. "It's so warm in here. Your cottage is lovely." "Thank you, Lily," Eleanor said. "It's been my home for many years. There's something comforting about a place that's seen so much life, don't you think?" Lily nodded, her gaze wandering around the room. The walls were lined with shelves filled with books, the spines worn from years of use. A collection of teapots sat on a sideboard, each one unique, a testament to Eleanor's love of tea. The furniture was old but well cared for, with cushions that invited you to sink into them. It was the kind of place that felt like home, even to a stranger. "Would you like some tea?" Eleanor asked, already making her way to the kitchen. "Yes, please," Lily replied. "That would be wonderful." As Eleanor busied herself with the kettle, Lily allowed herself to relax fully for the first time in hours. She had been so worried as she trudged through the snow, not knowing if she would find shelter before the storm worsened. But now, here she was, safe and warm, with a kind soul to keep her company. When Eleanor returned with a steaming pot of tea and 2 cups, she noticed the weariness in Lily's eyes. She poured the tea and handed Lily a cup, then settled back into her own chair. "So, Lily, what brings you to Alderwood?" Eleanor asked gently. Lily took a sip of tea, savoring the warmth. "I'm visiting my grandmother," she explained. "She lives just outside of town, but I lost my way in the storm. I didn't expect it to be this bad." Eleanor nodded sympathetically. The snow can be treacherous this time of year. It's easy to get turned around." "I just hope she's not worried about me," Lily said, her brow creasing with concern. "She's been expecting me for dinner, but I'm afraid I won't make it there tonight." "Don't fret, dear," Eleanor reassured her. "You can stay here for the night. I have a spare room, and you're welcome to use it. In the morning, when the storm has passed, we'll see about getting you to your grandmother's." Lily's relief was palpable. "Thank you, Eleanor. I don't know how to repay your kindness." "There's no need for that," Eleanor said with a warm smile. "I've always believed that in times of need, we should help one another. It's the way of the world, or at least it should be." The two women sat in companionable silence for a while, sipping their tea and listening to the crackle of the fire. Outside, the wind howled, and the snow continued to fall, but inside there was only warmth and peace. As the evening wore on, Eleanor and Lily began to talk more. They shared stories of their lives, their families, and the things that brought them joy. Lily spoke of her grandmother, who had raised her, and of the summers she spent in Alderwood as a child. Eleanor, in turn, spoke of her husband, Henry, and the many winters they had spent together in the cottage. "He was a good man," Eleanor said, her voice soft with memory. "He loved this place as much as I do. We built a life here, filled with simple pleasures. There's something to be said for a life like that." Lily listened intently, feeling a deep sense of connection to this woman she had only just met. There was a wisdom in Eleanor's words, a quiet strength that came from a life well lived. It reminded Lily of her own grandmother, and she felt a pang of homesickness. As the night deepened, Eleanor began to sense that Lily was growing tired. She suggested they turn in for the night, and Lily agreed, grateful for the warm bed that awaited her. The spare room was small but cozy, with a soft bed covered in a handmade quilt. A small window overlooked the snow-covered forest, and the moonlight cast a gentle glow over the room. Lily changed into the flannel pajamas that Eleanor had provided and slipped under the covers, feeling the warmth seep into her chilled body. Before long, she was fast asleep, her dreams filled with images of snowy forests and warm firesides. The next morning, the storm had passed, leaving the world outside blanketed in a thick layer of snow. The sun shone brightly, making the snow glisten like diamonds. Eleanor was up early, as was her habit, and she set about preparing breakfast. The smell of freshly baked bread and sizzling bacon soon filled the cottage, waking Lily from her deep slumber. Lily dressed quickly and made her way to the kitchen, where Eleanor greeted her with a warm smile. "Good morning, dear. Did you sleep well?" "Like a baby," Lily replied, smiling back. "Thank you so much for everything, Eleanor. I don't know what I would have done without you." Eleanor waved a hand dismissively. "Think nothing of it. Now sit down and have some breakfast. We'll figure out how to get you to your grandmother's afterward." As they ate, they talked about the plans for the day. Eleanor mentioned that the town's snowplow would likely clear the roads by midday, and she would call the local mechanic to help retrieve Lily's car. In the meantime, they would enjoy the morning together. After breakfast, they bundled up and went outside to admire the winter landscape. The trees were heavy with snow, their branches bowing under the weight, and the ground was covered in a thick, pristine layer that crunched underfoot. The air was crisp and clean, and the world was still as if holding its breath. "It's so peaceful," Lily said, her breath visible in the cold air. "I almost don't want to leave." "There's a certain magic to winter mornings," Eleanor agreed. "They remind us to slow down, to take a moment to appreciate the beauty around us." As they walked, Eleanor shared more stories of the town and its history, pointing out landmarks and telling tales of long-forgotten residents. Lily listened with rapt attention, feeling as though she were stepping back in time. It was a side of Alderwood she had never known, and she found herself wishing she could stay longer to hear more. By midday, the snowplow had indeed cleared the roads, and the mechanic arrived to tow Lily's car to the garage for repairs. It would take a few hours, so Lily decided to spend the rest of the day with Eleanor, enjoying her company and the warmth of Willow's End. As evening approached, the time came for Lily to leave. She gathered her things and prepared to say goodbye, feeling a pang of sadness at the thought of leaving this cozy haven. "I can't thank you enough for your kindness, Eleanor," Lily said as she stood at the door. "You've made what could have been a terrible experience into something I'll never forget." Eleanor smiled warmly and took Lily's hands in hers. "It was my pleasure, dear. You're always welcome here, remember that. If you're ever in Alderwood again, don't hesitate to visit." "I will," Lily promised. "And I'll make sure to bring my grandmother with me next time." With a final hug, Lily stepped out